TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom ve'erev tov, good evening. Welcome to our daily TV7 Israel News Bulletin broadcast from Jerusalem. Israel intensifies its aerial campaign against the Ayatollah Regime's internal repression apparatus. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is set to travel the region in a bid to stop the war against the Ayatollah Regime in Iran. And President Donald Trump voices frustration at NATO member states over refusal to come to America's aid. Iranian disinformation campaigns claiming Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was either killed or wounded has taken a turn when Netanyahu seized the opportunity alongside U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee to take a jab at the terror regime in Iran.
Mr. Prime Minister, I wanted you to know the President asked me to come and make sure you were okay.
Yes, Mike. Yes, I'm alive.
I checked that, and I'm happy to see that. But he wanted to make sure because, you guys get along too well.
I know, and we shake hands with 5 fingers in each hand. But I have to tell you, I'm alive, but I have this card.
Oh.
And, don't read it. So it's a punch card.
Mm-hmm.
Today I erased 2 names on the punch cards, and you see how many more to go on this batch. And what the President, the U.S. forces are doing is incredible. We're very proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And getting rid of these lunatics who'd like to develop nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to every American city after wiping out Israel. They ain't going to do that.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, in a subsequent, more serious setting ahead of a meeting of Israel's senior security echelons, highlighted Israel's unceasing military activities against the terror apparatus of the Ayatollah regime in Iran.
I'm here with Israel's defense minister, our chief of staff, the head of the Mossad, the chief of Air Force, our senior commanders. In the past 24 hours, we knocked out 2 of the terrorist chieftains, the top terrorist chieftains of this tyranny. Our aircraft are hitting the terror operatives on the ground, in the crossroads, in the city squares. This is meant to enable the brave people of Iran to celebrate the Festival of Fire. So celebrate and Happy Nowruz. We're watching from above.
Earlier, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz visited the Israel Air Force Tel Nof Air Base, where he held meetings with commanders, pilots, and ground crews, and highlighted the important work they are doing, which could lead to the fall of the tyrannical Ayatollah regime in Iran.
I
came to express my appreciation and thank you for what you are doing. You prove that the Israeli Air Force is truly the best in the world. Because of this ability and your determination, we can make the decisions, the Prime Minister and I, the government, and everyone who needs to make decisions in coordination with the military. This time the action is systematic, and if the Iranian people will do what they want regardless and things come together and even this regime falls, then it will be a 150% achievement.
While the main high-intensity front in Operation Roaring Lion is undoubtedly prioritized, the IDF is also engaging Iran's Lebanese proxy Hezbollah, which is desperately trying to alleviate the pressure from the terror regime in Iran at the expense of its own population.
In recent hours, we have identified increased preparations by the terrorist organization Hezbollah to launch rocket barges towards Israeli territory. It is important for me to say, we are monitoring Hezbollah and all of its commanders, from Beirut to southern Lebanon. The IDF is operating at this very moment to foil and disrupt these attempts. The IDF will not allow harm to Israeli civilians. We are striking Hezbollah forcefully even now, and we will continue to strike anyone who threatens your security.
It is interesting to know that while Hezbollah launched the first barrage of rockets towards Israel on March 2nd in support of the Ayatollah regime in Iran, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has nonetheless condemned Israel for its defensive maneuver against Hezbollah, claiming that Israel's actions are dragging the region toward a disaster. Moreover, in remarks to his cabinet in Ankara, The Turkish president asserted that the United States and Israel are engaged in a senseless, unlawful, and extremely wrong war against the Ayatollah regime in Iran, and that Turkey was working to pressure the United States to end its war.
Amacımız bu anlamsız.
Our aim is to bring this senseless, unlawful, and extremely wrong war to an end as soon as possible.
Bir an önce sona erdirilmesidir.
As part of Turkey's refer to efforts to end the war, Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan announced that he would tour the region.
Savaşın durdurulması için atılabilecek adımları görüşmek üzere.
I will soon be undertaking a regional visit to discuss steps that can be taken to stop the Iran war. I am embarking on this regional visit starting tomorrow, friends. We will be meeting with countries in the region. Here, Allah willing, I want to share both the President Erdogan messages on this issue and Turkey's assessments and proposals on how to achieve lasting regional peace.
Tekliflerini paylaşmak istiyorum.
Ankara's top diplomat further addressed the Trump administration's call on NATO member states to assist the United States in opening the strategic Strait of Hormuz, which has substantive impact on the majority of member states, particularly when it comes to energy products and fertilizers.
Tabii ki Hürmüz Boğazı'nın tıkanmış olması.
We are closely monitoring and observing the impact of the Strait of Hormuz's blockage on energy security and regional security. Our energy markets are, of course, affected by this. However, we have always believed that diplomatic channels and negotiations are the only valid way to overcome all problems, including the energy issue.
Sorunların aşılması için tek geçerli yol olduğunu düşünüyoruz. Teşekkür ederim.
Similar to Turkey, French President Emmanuel Macron has also refused to come to America's aid in forcibly opening the Strait of Hormuz.
Nous ne sommes pas partie prenante au conflit. Et donc, jamais la France ne prendra part à des opérations.
We are not party to the conflict, and therefore, France will never take part in operations to open or liberate the Strait of Hormuz in the current context. On the other hand, we are convinced that once the situation has calmed down, and I deliberately use this term broadly, once the situation has calmed down, that is to say, once the main bombing has ceased, we are ready, along with other nations, to assume responsibility for the escort system, but it is all a political, technical, and, obviously, with all the actors of maritime transport, with the insurers and operational work that we must build. We have begun exchanges with India, with several other European partners or partners in the region.
Commencer des échanges avec l'Inde, avec plusieurs autres partenaires européens ou partenaires de la région.
It is worth noting that while France refused to take an active role in forcing the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, Paris laid to rest Major Arnaud Friand, who was killed by an Iranian proxy in Iraq that had deliberately targeted a French base on behalf of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, wounding an additional 6 French troops.
Le Major Friand est mort pour la France.
Major Friand died for France in Iraq late last week during a drone attack perpetrated by a pro-Iranian militia while he was working in the fight against terrorism and the fight against Islamic State, for the defense of Iraqi sovereignty and, by doing so, for our security. Let me reiterate that the nation stands by the side of his family, his close friends, his brothers in combat. And I also particularly send my thoughts to our soldiers who were injured, some of whom are still in intensive care at this moment in hospital.
En ce moment même à l'hôpital.
Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. President Donald Trump, while hosting the Irish Prime Minister, voiced his clear frustration over the refusal of NATO member states to come to America's aid, despite voicing their approval behind closed doors.
I was watching over the last couple of weeks, and all of our NATO allies were very much in favor of what we did. They thought it was very important. We were just discussing it, actually. Very important that we take out the nuclear threat from Iran, and we've done that very strongly, very powerfully. We've wiped out their Navy, wiped out their military in every aspect. Their Air Force is now decimated. They have no Air Force, no Navy. They have no radar. Their radar is entirely gone. Their anti-aircraft machinery is gone. Everything is gone. Their leaders are gone. I guess one of their top person was, they say, a lot of people say their actual top was killed yesterday, along with somebody else who was responsible for the killing. The man that was responsible for the killing of 32,000 people over the last 2 weeks, he was in charge of the killing of protesters. It's an evil group. I mean, they've killed much more than 32,000 people. And the man who was responsible for that was also killed yesterday.
President Trump continued by stressing that NATO member states have made a mistake.
NATO's making a very foolish mistake. And I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there. So everyone agrees with us, but they don't want to help. And we as the United States have to remember that, because we think it's pretty shocking.
The American leader continued by highlighting that in contrast to NATO members, Middle Eastern countries have stepped up their support for the United States.
Well, we've had great support from the Middle East. Qatar has been great. Saudi Arabia has been terrific. Bahrain has been very good. The Middle Eastern countries have been very strong in their support. And of course, Israel has been our partner. Israel's been very, very strong.
It is worth noting that President Trump, who was scheduled to travel to Beijing for a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping on March 31st, has delayed his state visit by at least 5 weeks.
Well, yeah, on China, it's a little different story. We're resetting the meeting, and it looks like it'll take place in about 5 weeks. We're working with China. They were fine with it. We're going to say, I look forward to seeing President Xi. He looks forward to seeing me, I think. But I do look forward to seeing him. We have a good relationship with China. China actually has become economically for us very good, as you know. It's much different than it was in the past. And we have a very good working relationship with China. So we're making it in about 5 or 6 weeks.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News, which is made possible by the generosity of our viewers. If you would like to help support TV7 Israel, which is exclusively donation-based, you can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Please keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Tov, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.